Maybe what you want?
Let's go.
156A2. Those of you who are following in Gemara, Shabbos, the art scroll is 156A2. And Safari, I check 156A.
I don't.
All right. So today we're going to discuss, I'd say it's a, I don't know if it's appropriate to use the term fun, but it's a light and enjoyable topic in the Talmud. And we'll get into the idea of Mazol. We hear often the term Mazol Tov. I've heard people react to the situation by just saying Mazol, which is kind of strange. But the phrase is Mazol Tov. How would you translate Mazol Tov into English? Congratulations. What's that? Let's have a drink. Mazol Tov is well, be happy. All right, so we're going to get to the idea of Mazol and the Jewish approach to Mazol in the Gemara over here. But it starts with a discussion on what is it predetermined certain parts of who you are and your personality and how life is going to be. And the Talmud gets into a discussion over here of depending on what day of the week you were born, then the following will take place. All right, so does everybody here know what day of the week they were born? Tuesday. All right.
Sunday.
Okay. You may not want to reveal it just yet because you're going to wait till what the Gemara says. Okay. So if you know what day of the week you were born, now you'll figure it all out. Now it'll all make sense. The Talmud says like this. And it's an interesting opening wording to the Talmud. Ksiv, it was written, a pinkase, on the pinkas. The pinkas is the notebook of a man named Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. So he had the following written in his notebook. Basically, this wasn't a typical lecture or a class that he gave, but this is one is in his own private notes. This is what he kept written over there. And he said as follows. Haiman de Bechad b'Shabbos. So anybody who's born on Sunday, Yehi Gever Velo Chadabe. He gave a kind of a strange description. This person will be a person. Bechad b'Shabbat, which is Aramaic. The Talmud is Aramaic. Chad is one in Aramaic. Shabbat is in the week. The first of the week. First of the week. Shavua is the week. So if a person is born on Sunday, he says they will be a person of singular nature. You're born on Sunday, singular nature. The Gemara is now going to delve into what that means. Says the Gemara, "My velo chadabe." What does it mean that this person is going to be a person born on Sunday is of singular nature? Ilema velo chad letivu. If you're going to suggest that it means that a person born on Sunday doesn't have even a trace of goodness to them, they're singular in their negative. Mar says that can't be. V'ha'amar Rav Ashi, the great sage Rav Ashi, one of the final sages of the Talmud, he said, "Ana b'chad Shabbata havay, chad Shabbat havay." I was born on Sunday. So, and Rav Ashi was a very holy person. So such a person, it cannot be that what Yeshua Levi meant is that a person born on Sunday won't have any goodness to them. Ella, rather, perhaps it means lav chada levishu, that a person born on Sunday will be singular in their goodness and will not have any negative to them. The Gemara says that can't be either. Because the same Rav Ashi who said, I was born on Sunday, Rav Ashi said, I was born on Sunday, as well as Dimi bar Kukusta was also born on Sunday. A man named Dimi bar Kukusta. I and Dimi bar Kukusta both born on Sunday. Ana Melech, he said, Rav Ashi said, I became a head, Melech in Dukim, but here means the head of a Torah academy. V'hu havaresh ganvi, and he became the leader of thieves. I became the leader of a yeshiva. I became the head of a yeshiva academy, and he became a leader of thieves. So it cannot be that if you're born on Sunday, but basically he eliminates both possibilities that you don't have any negative or positive. He gave two examples of people both born on Sunday. One became the head of a yeshiva, another became the head of thieves. Ella, rather, must be that what Yeshua Levi was saying is that if you're born on Sunday, then you will be singular. And we'll wait till the end of the Gemara before we kind of make any sort of conclusions. But he's saying if you're born on Sunday, your nature will be very strong in one way or another. You'll either be entirely focused on good or entirely focused on negative. Why? My time. What's the logic to that? Because the Ivrube or V'chosha. Because on Sunday, you had the creation of light and darkness. Both extremes were created on Sunday. So therefore he says, if you're born on Sunday, you're going to have one of those extremes, either light or darkness. Rav Ashi chose the path of light, darkness, but you're going to be you're going to have a pretty singular approach. Now, something yeah. Oh, so now Rav Ashi was actually saying something else. Rav Ashi was saying that they both became leaders because one became a leader of yeshiva, one became a leader of thieves, because Sunday is the leader of the week. It leads off the week. So that's what he was saying. And Yeshua Levi says something else, is that you're going to be singular because the two extremes, either light or darkness, but nothing in between. There was no gray. It was white and black. There's no gray. That's what he said. And now we move on to the rest of it. Haiman de Betrei Shabbat. What about someone who's born on Monday? What is going to be the person who is born on a Monday? He says, Yehei will be Gever Ragzam, will be an angry person. Why is a person born on Monday going to be angry? So everyone knows Monday has this like bad reputation. Poor Monday, the first work day of the week. Now in Israel, Monday is not the first work day. In Israel, Sunday is the first work day. Sunday is the beginning of the work day for work week, and then you have 5 days, Sunday through Thursday. Friday is not much of a work day because of Shabbos. You have Friday and Shabbos, but Sunday is the beginning of the work. But here, certainly in America, Monday gets a bad rap because it's the beginning of the work week. But that's not the reason. So why would a person born on Monday be an angry person? My time. Well, the reason is mishum de'ifligu be maya. Because what happened in creation, you can see we're going back to creation. The Rishon Levi was associating this all with creation. He said, because on Monday is when the waters were divided, so it's a day of division, it's a day of separation. So such a person is going to be a divisive person. He's going to feel divided from other people. Monday is the day of division. So because it's the day of division, so therefore, this person is going to be divided from other people. Someone who's in conflict with other people is going to be an angry person. So you're born on Monday, you're an angry person. I don't know if anybody was born on Monday, but if you are, don't worry, because the Gemara is going to reach. You'll see. Let's wait it out till the end. Yeah. Hi, man. What about someone born on Tuesday? Woo. Hi, man. So if someone's born on Tuesday, Yehei, he says, Gever Atir v'zanai. A person born on Tuesday will become wealthy, but will also be promiscuous. Why? What's the logic of being of these two qualities or these two elements of Tuesday? Wealthy and promiscuous. My time mishum the ivrube asavim. Because on Tuesday is when the grass was created. What does that have to do with those two elements? So Rashi says, the first is, the pasuk says, again, if you look at the Torah portion of creation, it says, Tadshe ha'aretz desha, let the earth sprout forth grass. And he says, Hudavar shepara v'raba ma'od, it's something which grows very quickly. Umemaher, I'm reading from Rashi now. Umemaher legadel v'litzmah, and it grows very quickly. The leading princess. So that has to do with wealth. That because the growth that happened on that day, that which God said to grow, grew very quickly. The idea of wealth is that which grows, that one's wealth grows quickly. But there's another element, and that is that we find something interesting. When God creates the trees, he says the trees should grow according to their liminehu. Each tree should grow in its species. You know, what that means, or does that mean that the apple tree has choice? No, but God was saying the rule of the tree is that the tree naturally grows within its species. The apple tree on it will provide apples.
Biogenesis is like the term for that,
where they blend them together. Correct. But the tree on its own, grow on its own. Grass or herbs, for that matter, are constantly blended with one another. Therefore, it does not say when God creates the herb, the grass and the herbs, it does not say and let them grow according to their species. It's almost as if God is allowing that when it comes to grass or herbs or that type of growth, that they could blend and mingle and therefore produce different types of herbs and different types of spices because they're not meant to necessarily be independent. But he was explaining that to be, that represents promiscuity. That there's no, so to say, what's that? That there's intermingling, right? That the herbs and the spices all mingle together. That represents promiscuity. I think that's self-understood. So that's what he says. Tuesday, someone's born on Tuesday has those elements to them: wealth and promiscuity. And we know often that with wealth sometimes comes promiscuity. It shouldn't be that way, but sometimes it happens.
What was
Wealth, because the idea of the growth of the grass and the herbs, they grow very quickly. The idea of growing quickly is connected to wealth. That's Tuesday. So far we have Sunday being a person born on Sunday has a very extreme one way or another. It seems to be a singular approach in life. Monday is a divisive person, and therefore an angry person. Tuesday has wealth, but also promiscuity. What's that? So far it's been, Tuesday was like half. Finally, now we're going to move on to the, for those of you born in the second half of the week, good news. Monday be'arba b'shabbat. Somebody who was born on Wednesday. Yehi will be Gever Chakim V'Nohir, will be a wise and radiant person. Wise and radiant. You were born on Wednesday? Yes. So was I. There you go. Wise and radiant person is Wednesday. Why? Because what was created on Wednesday? The celestial lights, the sun and the moon and the stars. So it represents light, represents wisdom, and light represents luminance. As he says, Mishum the Islu Be Ma'oros. That was the day in which the luminescent lights in the sky were created. Whoever was born on, someone who was born on Thursday, Yehei Gever Gomel Chasadim, will be a person of kindness. My timer. Why? Mishum the Ibru Be Dagim Ba'oifos. Because on Thursday, the birds and the fish were created. And as Rashi says, unlike other animals, the animals of the wild have to work hard for food. Animals have to work hard. Birds and fish don't have to work hard. Fish and we have this tradition that birds and fish don't have to work very hard for the food. It is provided to them with greater ease. So therefore, just as God expressed his kindness by creating animals which their food is provided for them more easily, so then Thursday is a day in which those who are born on Thursday have a natural predisposition towards kindness. Haiman demali Shabbata, someone who's born on Friday, Yehei Gever Chazra, will be a person who will be chasing after. Those of you who have to prepare for Shabbos with their families know that Friday is a hectic day. You got to rush, especially with winter coming. Winter is, Shabbos starts earlier. Here in Michigan, it starts as early as 4:45, but in other places in the country, New York, it'll start a little bit after 4 o'clock. So if you go to New York on a Friday and go to the subway from Manhattan at 3 o'clock, you'll see a bunch of Jews rushing out of their office to get back home, rushing. So someone who's born on Friday will be someone who rushes. Amar Nachman Yitzchak, Nachman Yitzchak says, what type of rushing? Chazron b'mitzvah. A person who runs after mitzvahs. Again, because Friday is a day in which we chase mitzvahs. We're preparing for Shabbos. The whole Fridays, you're running after the preparation of Shabbos, and therefore it's a day in which we are chasing mitzvahs. Okay, so there you have the 6 days. Finally, he says, Haiman de Bishabsa, Yehi, Bishabsa Yamos. Someone who was born on Shabbos will die on Shabbos. Now, I don't know. What? So we'll get to the character traits in a moment. I think it'll get to it. Yeah. Someone who's born on Shabbos will die on Shabbos. Why? Now, I don't know if scientifically this is proven. I know people were born on Shabbos, and I guess you could probably look back, probably not dying on Shabbos. But what's the reasoning? The reasoning is interesting. Why would a person born on Shabbos die on Shabbos? So to some degree, it's a punishment. Even though they may live a very long life. Why? Al da'achilu alohi yoma. Because when a child is born on Shabbos, they basically require the desecration of Shabbos. Now, you're required to desecrate the Shabbos for the birth of a child. You have to do whatever we put Shabbos, you put life ahead of the observance of Shabbos, always. But generally speaking, someone who's born on Shabbos is going to force the desecration of Shabbos. So because their birth caused the desecration of Shabbos, that's why their passing will also take place on Shabbos. It's a way of like a penitence, I guess, for their birth. Even though obviously there was no guilt, no one did anything wrong. That's what he said. Omar Rabba bar Rav Shila. Rabba bar Rav Shila said, "The Kadisha Rabba Yiskare, and he shall be called a great and holy person." Basically, he says that someone born on Shabbos has an extra holiness to them because they're born on the holiest day of the week. And therefore, even though maybe they'll die on Shabbos because they were born on Shabbos, but nevertheless, there is a holiness to the person born on Shabbos. Fine. What is the point of all this? The point of all this, firstly, it's interesting. I guess, if something, if you ever have to get up and talk at someone's birth, you can say, well, especially if it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Shabbos, you have a nice thing to say about them. Oh, what's that?
Your son's gonna grow up to be an angry person.
It's not a good Monday speech, but it's good for Wednesday through even Tuesday. You can just say this person be wealthy. You don't say the other half. So that's what we're getting to. So the question over here is there, what does Judaism say about the idea that you have this too, you have people today, are you a Scorpion or Pisces or whatever, there's all Gemini, right? And there's some people really get into it, that I am this, so therefore that's my personality. What does Judaism say about that? Are we connected to Mazol? That's why I asked what Mazol means and Mazol Tov. Mazol actually means a constellation. The Mazol means a constellation in the sky. Mazol also means your energy. When you say Mazel Tov, congratulations is actually not a translation of that at all. No, we use it for congratulations. Nothing wrong with that. But Mazel Tov actually does not mean congratulations at all. It either means you have a good mazel, you have a good luck or good constellation, so to say, or it means you're drawing down good energy. So the question is, are there things beyond us which determine what we're going to be? It's a big question. Does Judaism believe in that? Do we believe in these esoteric, superstitious to some degree ideas that there are elements beyond, which are out of our control, which determine what's going to be? And that's what this Gemara is getting into. So here, so far, we've said yes. That to some degree, however serious you take it, in other words, whether you take it with 100% seriousness, or maybe you say there's just an element of truth to this. But what seems to be saying is that if you're born on Sunday, well then, this is how things are going to be for you. If you're born on Monday, you're going to have you're going to be angry. If you're born on Tuesday, you're going to be wealthy. If you're born on Wednesday, you're going to be, and every, the day that you were born on, that means that there's certain elements beyond you which influence your reality. Now, we find something interesting in connection in this week's Torah portion, going out of the Gemara for a moment, about this idea of Mazol. Elsewhere, the Talmud focuses on it. The very beginning of this Torah portion says, God says to Abraham, Vayom Hashem al Avram at the time, Lech lecha, leave your land, and go to the land where I will show you. And in that land, the next verse says, I will bless you. I will give you, you will have all sorts of blessings that you don't have until this point. From that verse, the Talmud, not here, but elsewhere, says that possibly moving from one location to another location may cause you to have better mazol. Not doing anything different, simply moving. You live in Michigan and you move from Michigan to Kentucky. You're having bad luck in Michigan. Parnas is not working out. The stock market is not working out for you. Things aren't doing well. So the Talmud says maybe one suggestion is move. And not because you'll have better opportunities somewhere else. No, it's not logical. But that somehow in this new location, you'll have better mazol. There's even a Hebrew line to that effect, which says, Mishaneh makom, mishaneh mazol. If you move your place, you'll change your location, you'll change your mazol.
You can escape from yourself.
But here you have this idea that maybe you can escape to some degree. Maybe your mazol, again, your luck, your constellation will be better in a different location. Which again comes back to this point that there are certain things that are beyond our control, which determine how things are going to be. A person's mazol. So far we've mentioned about the days of the week you're born on. And then we have from the beginning of the Torah portion which says where you live, and maybe you need it's not just a change of scenery that you're going to feel better. It's that maybe the change of scenery will bring about different mazol. Talmud also says maybe changing your name, which is also connected to Avram and Sarah. Where God says, you're not Avram and Sarai won't have children. But Avraham, when I change your name to Avraham and Sarah, they will have children. In other words, the mazal of Avram and Sarai was such that you can't have children. But by changing the name, you're able to change your mazal. So, yes.
Is there a halachic basis that you can change your name?
So you can. Generally, it's only done. There's two situations where I've seen it, where I've heard about it done. One is common where I've seen, which is someone who is not well. If someone is very sick, you'll add a name, which is usually connected to healing or to life. But if you look in the Rambam talks about that another custom which was done, I haven't seen it nowadays, is that someone who became a Baal Tshuva, someone who was not Torah observant, and did Tshuva and became, repentant. So there was a tradition at some point to change their name. And the logic to that was to almost indicate, I am no longer the person I was before. So I even have a new name.
So is it sort of like similar when some choose their English name or Hebrew name? Like, could that be?
Yeah, it would be if someone that would be a contemporary example. If someone says, now that I've become more Torah observant, I want to be associated with my Hebrew name. But it's a little bit more drastic when they say I'm changing my name. I used to be Yosef, and Yosef committed all sorts of terrible things. So now I'm going to be Chaim and or whatever, Shmuel, and because Shmuel is a new person. So the Rambam brings out that was a custom. I haven't seen that nowadays, where a person literally changes their name to indicate that I'm a new person. But that's where it's brought down, the idea of changing one's name. So this is the idea. So you do see that there is some sort of there is this element of superstition. I don't know if you want to call it superstition, but that we are bound to things bound to Mazol. Mazol, which means perhaps luck or constellation, which is a similar concept. In other words, it's beyond our control. and they determine, or they are to some degree determining what's going to be. Okay? The Jews believe in luck. So now I'm going to jump ahead a little bit more. If you happen to be following along, I'm going to jump ahead. And basically the part that I'm skipping is that Rabbi Chanina says, I'll just share the first line. Rabbi Chanina, all this which we said until now about the days of the week determining who you are, was the opinion of Rabbi Levi. Rabbi Chanina goes and says, no, that's not what's going to determine, but rather, Amr Rabbi Chanina, Amru le levar Levi, go tell Yeshua ben Levi, lo Mazol Yom Gorim. It's not the Mazol of the day that determines your personality or certain elements of your life. Ela Mazol Sha'a Gorim. But rather, the hour of the day which you were born is what determines what is going to be. And he goes on to list the different hours of the day, what that means. Okay, I'm going to skip that part. You're welcome to go check it out on your own, page 156a. But I want to jump to the next, which is a continuation of this. He says, the last thing he says, Rabbi Chanina concludes, is Hai Man Dibimadim, someone who was born during the hour of Mars. Anybody know the hours? Mars is red. That's called Mazol Madim, the red hour, which is the hour of Mars. He says, if someone is born during the red hour, Yihi Gavar Oshid Dama, will be is that what it is? Okay. Will be a person who spills blood. Mazal Madim. Oh, so you're saying it's like the evening red. The evening red. Okay. Mazal Madim. He says someone who's born during that red hour will have a temperament of blood spilling, which sounds pretty awful. Says Rabbi Ashi. So says Rabbi Ashi, that doesn't necessarily mean bad. He says, Amar Rav Ashi says, I umna. This person could be a bloodletter. For much of history, one of the forms of healing, which was only stopped maybe a couple hundred years ago, was bloodletting. Unlike today, we take blood to give. There was to be a thought that bloodletting, taking out blood, was a form of healing because it would cleanse the blood by taking some out. So he's saying a person could be a bloodletter. You know, there'd be a helpful person, someone who's born in that hour. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be evil. They could be doing it in a form of benefit. Iganva, or maybe they will become a highway robber and hurt people. Itavcha, maybe they'll become a butcher. Imohela, or maybe they'll become a mohel, someone who's born circumcision. Saying yesterday, my sister and brother-in-law had a baby last week. And yesterday, my brother-in-law, who recently became a mohel, so even though he has sons beforehand, but yesterday was the first time that he got to actually perform circumcision on a son. So bloodletting doesn't necessarily mean negative. Someone who's born in the red hour and therefore has a certain tendency towards blood. Okay, so find some sort of way to utilize that to be helpful to people instead of harmful. Amar Rabba, and Rabba says, I was born in that red hour, and I don't have any tendency towards blood. Amar Abai said, what are you talking about? Nami, you too, you're the head of a court, and sometimes you have to punish people, and sometimes even capital punishment. So you too have sometimes expressed it now in a positive way, because you're a judge, and whenever you're passing judgment and punishment is only for the benefit of society. But you see over here something interesting, which is that most temperaments can be used for something positive as well. Even if the initial assumption is that this is connected to negative, find a way to use it for something positive. I don't know if anybody can think of examples of that, where a person's temperament, which some may see as a character flaw or as even maybe a handicap, can be used to that person's benefit, maybe to the benefit of those around. Right. What could be a flaw could be a superpower. I'm trying to think of examples where
Anger's a good one.
the question is, how can you utilize anger towards positive though?
Skills of fighting.
What's that?
Skills of fighting.
As far as what? What is the personality trait?
Fire.
Injustice, a hatred towards injustice.
Right.
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Or a mitzvah is really when somebody gets fired up.
Right. I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking like some people, like, some people struggle with, let's say, ADD or something, attention deficit disorder. But sometimes that same challenge in one area becomes a source of energy. Some people have a lot of energy. That energy is struggling to sit in one place and learn, but allows them to be energetic and helpful in another area. Sometimes the same thing which causes a challenge in one area can actually become, when you channel it the right way, that's what a great teacher is. A great teacher is someone who sees a student who maybe have struggled in the past and says, let me find a way to make this student shine. That area where they've struggled with, maybe they can use their talents in another way. Instead of trying, what is it? Albert Einstein once said, one of the lines which I really enjoyed from him was that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then it'll live its entire life thinking it's an idiot. And the idea is that if we judge everyone by one person's, or even we judge everyone by what for most people is brilliance or expertise, then yeah, we're taking people who can express their quality elsewhere, and we're turning them into a fish climbing a tree. Recognize each person's quality, recognize how each person's temperament can be used for something positive. And again, that's what I think separates the great teachers from the others. The teacher is able to find and identify the temperament of each student and say, how do I use this to their best? Not how do I box them in to what everyone else is doing. So I say, yeah, you're born in Mazol Madin, you're born in the hour of red, and therefore you have a tendency towards blood. Okay, let's make the best of that. Turn this person into a surgeon. Turn this person into a malal. What do they have to do with blood? Okay. Don't turn that person into a teacher. That's not the person you want to, because nowhere that person will excel with their qualities. Okay. Now, so far we've basically been following this notion that we are bound to a certain mazal, but there's certain things which are predetermined about our personality and our destiny. And now we come across so now just to just to conclude this thought, Rabbi Chanina says, Mazol Machkin, the celestial sign of your birth determines how wise you're going to be. Mazol Mashir, the celestial sign, your Mazol determines if you're going to be wealthy. V'yesh Mazol Yisrael. And there's those things which determine what you're going to be. He doesn't say it determines whether you're going to be good or evil. But the examples he gives are not good or evil. It says your wisdom is predetermined and your wealth is predetermined. That's the opinion of Rabbi Chanina. Now we're going to come across the opinions of those who disagree with him and the generally accepted opinion. Rabbi Yochanan says, Ein Mazol Yisrael. And this is the quote I gave earlier. He says, Jews don't have Mazol. Now, if you hear that, if you were to say that to someone, it sounds like a terrible thing. If you tell someone you don't have Mazol, that sounds terrible. In fact, there's even a name for someone who doesn't have Mazol. What's that? A Shlamazel. Shlamazel stands for Shalom Mazel, does not have Mazel. That's a Shlamazel. As I've shared before, excuse me for saying this again, what is the difference between a Shlamazel and a Shlemiel and a Nudnik? We say the difference is like this. The Shlemiel is the one who spills the soda, and it lands on the Shlamazel, the one who has no mazel. And the Nudnik says, was it regular cola or diet cola? They want to know when they see this. That's the Shlemiel, Shlamazel, and Nudnik. But Shlamazel means someone without mazel. So when you hear this term, Amar of Yochanan, Ein Mazol Yisrael, Jews have no mazel, it sounds like a harsh statement, a negative thing. But he actually means it as a positive thing. What he means is that no, we are not bound to any mazel. You cannot tell. Mazel means you have a certain luck. You have a certain it's a destiny. It's destined to be. Because you were born in this time, because you were in this situation, because you live in this place. Sorry, buddy, but you are just an unlucky person.
Rabbi, with that basis, zodiac signs.
Right.
That Judaism endorses.
So the first thing, yes, the concept of zodiac sign is mentioned. And until now, the opinion of Rabbi Chanina, for example, was very strongly suggesting that your zodiac sign or the day you were born will play a major role in that which happens to you in your life.
But not like the secular version of it, right? Like not like you would go on like some website and find.
I don't know. I wonder, maybe there's some parallels. I don't know. But it's the same signs, it's the same,
We might not know all the reasons. We got days of the week.
right,
Times.
right,
Now there's a formula, there's two variables, I'm sure there's others as well, to learn in the winter or something.
right. But yes, there's more to this. But the question is, how much does that even influence you? So Chanina seems to say it influences you a lot. You're wealth, you're this, that. It's not going to influence whether you're going to be good or evil, because everyone believes in freedom of choice. You may have certain tendencies, but it's going to have a strong influence on you. And what's going to be? And Rabbi Yochanan says no. Ein Mazol Yisrael. Jews are not bound to Mazol. Mazol does not determine things. And he quotes from what? So he says we have two sources of this. Rabbi Yochanan follows his logic. Rabbi Yochanan would ask, Minayin she'ein Mazol Yisrael. Where do I know that ein Mazol Yisrael? How do I know that Shenemar? So first he quotes a verse from Jeremiah chapter 10. Do not learn from the nations you're going into, but don't be afraid of the signs in heaven. So it's almost as if Yirmiyah is saying there are signs in heaven. There are certain stargazing, there may be certain signs that you could look up to and learn from, but don't be afraid of it. In other words, he's saying you are not controlled by them. You control your own destiny. The Rav Savar Ein Mazol Yisrael. Rav also said Ein Mazol Yisrael. And he quoted, and this is why I'm teaching this week, is because he quotes a verse in this week's Torah portion. At the end of this Torah portion, the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Rav. Minayin she'ein Mazol Yisrael. How do I know that there is no Mazol? That there is no Mazol, in other words, that Jews are not bound to Mazol. Shenemar, the Torah portion this week, at the end of the Torah portion, God says to Avraham, God says, I'm going to bless you. And Avraham says, what's the point of blessing? I don't even have any children who will benefit from my blessing. I don't have any children. So then what's the point? What I want is a child. So then God says, then there's an interesting verse. What's that? It's an interesting verse where God says the following. Vayotze oso hachutza. God took him outside. The question is, what does it mean God took him outside? Why does God have to take Abraham outside, Abraham outside? Why does he need that? So now the Talmud says, here's the full picture of what took place. Abraham said to God, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, ben beisi yoroshosi. I don't even have a child to inherit me. I have my servant's going to inherit me. So what's all these blessings? I don't really matter to me. The blessing that I really want, I'm not having.
Wait, wasn't Lot supposed to inherit it?
No, at this point he wasn't. He was talking about Eliezer.
Oh,
Yes. Amar lo. So God says to him, no, that's not true. Ki asher yetzi mimiyecha. God says the one that you will give birth to will inherit. Amar lefanav. So now Avraham says, Ribono shel olam says back to God. Nistakalti bi'itstagninus sheli. I already consulted astrology. I consulted astrology, and I've come to know, based on the astrological signs, the Eini Ro'i Lohar Lidbein. I am not destined to have a child. What he says. Omar Le. So that's where God says, that's what it means. He said he took him out. He says, leave your astrological beliefs. You are not bound to those beliefs. You're not bound to the signs which you saw, which may have some accuracy, but you're not bound to. God says, I am taking you out of that system. You are no longer bound to those signs. So, ein Mazol Yisrael, because you have no Mazol, which again is the ultimate compliment. It's saying there's nothing which determines what will be for you. You have control of your destiny. To some degree, obviously. We don't control how long we live, we don't control, but as far as blessings in life, a person should never say that I'm not meant to have it. I'm not meant to have this blessing. No, that's not true. We are not ein Mazol Yisrael. You're not bound to any Mazol. Mazol could be good or bad. We're not bound to Mazol. Ein Mazol Yisrael. And then he says, and this is the interesting conclusion of that conversation. My daite, God said to Avram, how do you reach your conclusion you're not going to have children? the Koi Tzedek Memayrev, that Jupiter, whose hour you were born, is situated in the west, and you were therefore infertile. So God says, Mahadarno Mikino Mizrach. I will simply move it around and situate it on the east. Which is a very interesting point. What is the Gemara saying over here? God says, what was the problem? Why do you think you're not going to have children? Because you were born during a certain hour, and the Jupiter is in the west. I'll change it. I'll put it in the east. Isn't it strange? Couldn't God have simply said, according to the Talmud, didn't God simply said, no problem, you can have a child anyway? No, it's almost as if God said, I will change the system so that your Mazol will work for you. So there is a system still. God says, I'm not going to override the whole system. I'll just change it to benefit. So you see this interesting a way of the Talmud's approaching it. There is some sort of Mazol, but God says, I can change the Mazol. I'm not going to just override the whole system, but I'll change it so that it'll work for you.
How come he would change the system if he was like back over Mazol and you didn't need like?
So that's how the Gemara is understanding that you're above Mazol. Is that if I know that my boss will change the rules to accommodate me, so then I'm not really bound by those rules. But the point is, the boss says, I still have to work within a set of rules. I'll just change the rule to benefit. So it's almost like God is saying, I still, the way I created the world, so yes, there is rules in place for how, there is some concept of Mazol, but I can change it for you. That's what God is saying. Instead of just saying, don't worry, I'll give you a child, God is saying, I'll change the system so the Mazol will benefit you and not be to your detriment, which is interesting. All right, so now we'll move on to another interesting example about this. Shmuel Nami. Shmuel also taught us. So far we have two opinions, that of Rav and that of Rav Yochanan, both say, Ein Mazol, so we don't have Mazol. We're not bound to Mazol. Shmuel Nami, now we'll share a story. Shmuel Nami, Ein Mazol Yisrael. Shmuel also taught us that we don't have Mazol. We're not bound to Mazol. What's the story? Where do we know this? We know this from a story. The Shmuel, the Avlet, Havayas. Shmuel was sitting with a man named Avlet. And Avlet was a scholar, was a sage. He was a non-Jewish sage and astrologer. He was a friend of Shmuel. So he was an astrologer, a wise person, and he was a friend of the great Jewish sage Shmuel. They were sitting together. The Havaka'azli. Hanach Imshila Agma. And there were men who were going to the swamp to cut reeds. Amar le Avlet l'Shmuel. Avlet said to Shmuel, "Hi Gavra, that person who just passed us by, who's walking towards the swamp for reeds, Azil v'lo asi. He went, but he's not coming back. He's gonna die in this journey that he's going on. Why? Because Tarek le'chivya umeis. A snake is going to bite him, and he's going to die. Because I see this. He was able to sense, maybe he knew who this person was, and he knew his astrological sign. He said, he's not coming back. Amar le Shmuel, to which Shmuel said, Ibar Yisrael, if he's an Israelite, Azil va'asi, he will go, and he will come back. Another Shmuel says, I will pray for him, and I believe my prayers will assist him. Adi Yasvi, as they were sitting there, Azil va'asi. Sure enough, this gentleman went and came back. Come Avlet. Avlet stood up. He was obviously upset that his prediction didn't work out. Shade letune. And he threw this man's, the bundle of reeds, he threw it onto the ground. Ashkach bechibya. And sure enough, within the reeds, there was a snake. The pasik b'shadi b'tarki, which had been sliced in half. There was this person, as he was cutting the reeds, cut through this snake as well. So in other words, he said, look, I was right, but you were right too. I was right that there was a snake there, and he should have been killed, but somehow something saved him. Amar le Shmuel. So Shmuel said to this reed cutter, my avdus, is there some sort of good deed that you've done which may have brought you the merit to save your life? Because again, there was a Mazol. Your luck should have led you to be killed, but you must have done something which overrode your Mazol. Amar le says, yeah. He said, there is something I did today, and maybe this helped me. He said, Kol yoima, every day, basically says every day we have a potluck. All of us reed cutters, we come and we bring some food, we put it into the big basket, and we all eat lunch later. Ha'idna, today, Hava'ika Chadminan, I noticed there was one person among us who was there, Delo Havale Rifta, who did not have anything to contribute to the basket. And I noticed that. Havakamichsa, and I knew that he would be embarrassed. It would be very embarrassing because somebody would go around and everyone has to put something into the basket for lunch, and he didn't have it. Amina lohu. So I stood up and I said, Anaka imna, let me be the one who collects the food today. The Armina, Timatoy Lagabe, when I came to this person, Shavoy Nafshoy Kimandashkila meaning. I pretended as if I was taking food from him. Instead, I took extra food of my own and I put it into the basket, thereby protecting him from shame. So that he would not be embarrassed. So Shmuel heard this. Amar le mitzvah avad. You did a mitzvah. You did a very special mitzvah. And when he heard, and therefore what did he do afterwards? Nafak Shmuel. Shmuel then went out, the darash, and he darshaned, and he went out and he said a verse from Mishlei, Proverbs chapter 10, which says, "Ustaka tatzil mimaves," that charity will save a person from death. Charity saves a person from death. Below me misa mishuna. He says, not only, now some people understand that to me, with a pasuk means that Shlomo Melech is saying that if a person is destined to a painful death, staka will protect them from a painful death. He says, no, it actually protects you from death. It has the ability to protect the person from death altogether. So that's what he derived from this pasuk, from this story. The person, it wasn't even a typical act of charity. It was an act, it was because he ended up giving his own bread to protect that person, but it was a double mitzvah. It was charity, but it was also in such a way that he protected a person from embarrassment. I'll share one more story, and then we'll conclude. Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva nami ein Mazol Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva also taught us, Jews have no Mazol. In other words, we are not bound to Mazol. What's the story of Akiva? This is a beautiful story, which is shared from time to time. What's the story? Rabbi Akiva Havyale Barta. Rabbi Akiva had a daughter. Amrile Kaldoi. The Chaldeans, who were known for their wisdom in astrology, told him, Hahu Yoma, the Ali Lebe Ginana, the day that your daughter is to be married, Tariq Le Chivya Umisa, she will be bit by a snake and will die. They told him that. Imagine that was a very disconcerting thing to hear. He was actually very concerned, very worried about this astrological prediction. Sure enough, the day of the wedding arrived and he married her off. He probably didn't tell the Shadchan that this was something he knew about his daughter, but he told his daughter was scheduled to be married. The wedding day arrived. Shakalta lemachbanta detzata beguda. She took, it's like there's like a pin, a brooch of some sort. Is that what it's called? A brooch, something which has a pin in it. And before she laid down to sleep, she put it into the wall, stuck it into the wall. In the morning, with Safra. And what happened was, without her realizing, that pin, that needle, when she put it into the wall, it punctured into the Eine Dechivya, into the eye of this dangerous, into the eye of a dangerous snake. With Safra in the morning, Tia Kashaklala, when she took the brooch, Hava Kasarich, she noticed that there was something on the end of it, Va'asi Chivra Basa. And she saw that it had punctured and killed a snake. Again, just like the previous story, the Chaldeans weren't wrong. The stargazers weren't wrong. But somehow she had managed to outsmart the system. Amar La'avua, her father said to her, Maya Vadet, what did you do? There must be some sort of merit that you have which caused you to override the Mazol. The Mazol is there, but you were able to override it. Amar Le, she said to him, the one thing I can think of is Betanya, that yesterday at the wedding, Also, Anya, a poor person came to the house. Weddings were typically done at the house. Said the poor person came to the house. Kara Abava, and the poor person was calling out, could someone help me? Can I get some food? The Havatridi Kule Alma Bisudasa, everyone was preoccupied with the wedding, with the feast. The Leka the Shami, nobody heard. Kaimna, so what did I do? I heard Shakalti Uleristinai. I took my plate of food, the Yahavas Li, that was given to me to eat, Yahav Semele, and I gave it to the poor person. Amar Allah, to which your father said, mitzvah. And to think about this is something very profound about this. Is that a bride on her wedding day is the one person who has the right, so to say, not to be distracted, not to pay attention to someone at the door. And yet the bride was the only person at the wedding who overheard somebody in need, someone who was hungry, and she took her own plate of food and gave it to him. Amar Allah, Rabbi Kiva said, mitzvah, you did a very special mitzvah. And he went out and said the same verse that Shmuel said. Nafek Rabbi Kiva v'darash. Rabbi Kiva went out and then explained to everyone that tzedakah can protect a person from death, not only from having to deal with the painful death. It could actually protect a person from death altogether. So here's where you have these stories. And firstly, each story shares something beautiful. The story of the bride who is able to be concerned about someone in need, even if it's a day, which really she's the center of all the attention. The story of the reed cutter who was concerned about the shame of someone else and offered to be the collector to protect the person from shame. But at the conclusion of all this comes back to the verse in this week's Torah portion, where Abraham says to God, I know that I'm not destined to have children. And God says, you may be right. You may be right in your vision, what you saw, in your prediction. But you have the ability, with my assistance, to circumvent that prediction. Your mazal, you have the ability to change that mazal. And therefore, a person is never bound to negative mazal. So when we issue another mazal tav, we're saying, because mazal is not good or bad. Mazal could be one or the other. That's why when you say mazal, it doesn't make sense. If you say mazal tav, you should have good mazal. But even if you see a person who seems to be dealing with mazal ra, with negative mazal, you can share this whole Gemara with them. That a person is never bound to mazal. Ain't mazal Yisrael. We're not bound to mazal. That we can always override the system, even if the system seems to be rigged against us. Your person can override that system specifically through acts of charity and through acts of grace. All right, that will stop, and we'll could have a Myra, and then we'll enjoy some. Ellie, do you know how to do the